but those come in contact with each other. But oftentimes you're not invited to the higher level communities until you are operating on the same frequencies that those higher level communities operate within. And so you get into the community that is a little bit above you that you can reach up to from a frequency perspective, and then that becomes your new baseline, and then you can go up as far as you want to go up. But if you don't got it right internally, the rest of this stuff doesn't matter. Now, you can't do it just in and of itself. This is the magic trick of life. It's not like, let me pause everything else that's difficult in my life. Let me just focus on this one area right now. And then, like a video game, I'll unpause the rest. I know that's a dated reference because, these days with the MMR, online and all that kind of stuff. But back in my day, youngin', when I was playing video games, we'd pause it. You can't pause the rest of your problems and only work on one. So you have to learn how to manage multiple difficult things simultaneously. So there's priorities. So you say, okay, this is going to be the year where I'm going to prioritize this. These are the things that I'm going to maintain at stasis level. And these are the things that I don't care about. I don't have to manage these anymore, right? So it's like if you're starting a new digital product business, you probably are going to have to downcycle your social life a little bit. It's actually probably wise because A, you'll buy more time that way, and B, you'll get rid of more friction. Because if you're out there grinding it and then you go to your friends and you try to have a conversation with them about it, even if they like you, they won't probably approve of it because that's not what they're used to. That's a natural response. So you might have to downcycle some of your social life. Or if it's not that, maybe instead of also getting the six-pack abs or getting, like the yoga butt or the Pilates butt for you women, right? Maybe you have to maintain stasis on your physical appearance so you can up-level your financial status, right? So this is a game of considerations. It's a game of compromises because it's like you can have it all, but you can't have it all at once. So you want to prioritize an area of your life, maintain many of your other areas, and then allow certain things to go. Ideally, things that are unnecessary, you can completely let them go, but at least let some things take a backseat temporarily, and then they can come back to the forefront as well. It is very difficult when you're younger to build a business, depending on your goals, right? Most of you are not irrational with your goals. You don't want to be a multimillionaire immediately, like my attitude was. But at that point in my life, it was impossible to do that and to go out there and be dating and have a massive social life and all of those other things. So I prioritized the business. And then, of course, it's funny because that then increases the social aspects. It increases the dating aspects in your life. It increases every other area of your life. So you have to make decisions on what will be subtracted so something can be added. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah, and I know that was a long question, as I tend to do. And so these are all, I'm trying to handle multiple mindset questions at once because I saw multiple mindset questions come in. And I will be straight with you. My heart is a little broken right now because I've been away from my wife going on, I got here last Saturday, flew out from LA on Friday. So I've been going here. It's now Sunday, Dubai time. I just talked to her before I came up here. It was Sunday morning her time. And it's like, this is painful for me at this point to be away from her this long. It hurts. And so even in success, you still make these sacrifices. I had to prioritize all of you for a short period of time over my loved ones, over my wife, over my children. And I know that, and it's good to be aware of that. But I get to do this so I can do those things for them as well that I do for them. And so you have to be okay with managing that, and a lot of people aren't. I wish I had the saying. I can't find it. Maybe somebody can pull it up here. You can measure somebody's success on how they can hold simultaneous contradictive thoughts at the same time and be unperturbed by them, right? So that's kind of a stoic approach. How can I hold multiple competing points of views at the same time and be undisturbed by them and find within those contradictions insight and action? And this is what we look like. Now, I know I'm speaking at a high level to you, but here's another belief that I have that I would love for you to try on. Because again, I mostly work with multimillionaires. Like, that's my life these days. I work with some of the most powerful personalities on the planet that you can imagine, and they're all incredibly difficult in their own unique ways. They're all lightning in a bottle that, is very intense to manage. And I'm hopping from one to the next to the next. Like, it's a very chaotic and fun and entertaining and exciting lifestyle. Nonetheless. But my belief and this has always been my belief, and it served me very well. I don't try to dumb things down to somebody's level. I try to pull them up to my level. And so as I speak to you today from this level, it is my belief that even at the conscious level, if you don't understand it yet, that at the subconscious level, the parts that you need to hear right now will reach the parts of you that need to be reached, and then you will start operating maybe in very subtle and microscopically different ways at first. But over time, these will become more and more integrated to you. And they will come up when you most need them. That's kind of how I found about this. Ghostwriter, I believe, is in 13 different languages. And then from that, you can use general AI to iterate and localize to pretty much every other language. Yeah, thank you. And this is off the dome, right? No slides, no script, just a couple of us old souls chatting here. Yeah, no, this was cool. This was not even planned today. I showed up today and I activated an old yoga injury. This is a funny thing. So this is why you have to be careful once you get really good at something. Like once you get dedicated to something, excess and deficiency. You know that? Who said that? It was a philosopher. The difference between excess and deficiency, the virtue of mean, right? The virtues of mean is you want to be in that virtuous state where not too much, but not too little. So I used to do a lot of hot yoga. I did 42 days in a row straight. So none of the wrestling. I would go over and get my ass kicked all across the United States, whether I won or lost. I got my ass kicked. My dad had me wrestling since I was 4. I got even my injuries have injuries, right? But nothing will hurt worse than when I did 42 days of hot yoga straight. And then I did it through Christmas. And then on New Year's Eve 5 years ago, on New Year's Day, I heard it doing a forward fold. And every so often I'll act it up, especially when I work hard like this. So I got out of the car today to come in and I hurt the back. I wasn't planning to speak today. And Yvonne says, "You're on." And I go, "Okay, sounds good." Just like that, right? So this is, over time, you want to get excellent in an area of your life like this. In your professional life, you want to get excellent in an area like this, like I'm demonstrating to you now. And like Iman has excellence, at least one excellent in your life, where under any circumstance, you could turn it on and you can provide value in a way that makes sense for you to get compensated for it. So that's eventually where you want to go, but where you start is small. You start with the few people that need help, put a digital product in front of them, see what happens, adjust as needed, and then add more, and add more. Yeah. Okay, cool. Should I focus on the Spanish or the English market first? I think you should focus on where you have the biggest advantage. So if you see an opportunity in the Spanish market that makes sense, then you should start there. If you think that the English is going to work better for you, then go in the English market. If you can manage both, you should consider both, because you can create a product and localize it into both languages, put it out there, and then you can see what happens in between the two. Make it a race. See which one hits there first. Yeah. Okay. Virtue of mean. Yeah. Aristotle. That's what it was. Thank you for that. Yeah. Aristotle was between excess and deficiency. And I play that again. I play that a lot in my mind. Yeah, I play that a lot. Excess and deficiency. Yeah, this is the nuanced point of view, okay? Just so you know, it's incredibly difficult to hold the nuanced point of view because it's generally the this or that point of view. So success can be big or success could be small. And I'm just making sure that I don't have my phone here. I mean, my computer here. So if the boys need me or anything, I want to check on my phone buzzes, just so you know. That's why I pulled that out. Yeah, so it can be meaning you go at a micro audience at a low price point, or you can go mass at a big price point. Both of those work. The fluidity in which you go to solve your problem is incredibly valuable, but the ability to manage nuance is a big part of that. So I think you should overwhelm yourself with a variety of multiple actions that make it impossible for you not to get positive feedback and then double down on that positive feedback. That's the name of the game. And then the rest of it is emotional. What are the emotions that are holding you back? What is the emotionality that is costing you right now? And how can we diminish that emotionality enough so it no longer gets in the way? We don't have to make it go away yet. We just have to stop it from getting in your way enough to prevent you from moving forward. How do we surround ourselves with winners? You buy your way in. You either buy it with time or you buy it with money. Like we tell our kids all the time. We always tell our kids, hey, if you have a chance to go to work with somebody who's excellent in your field, you should shine their shoes, you should wash their car, you should do their language, you should pull their weeds, right? That access, that proximity to excellence is that valuable. Like you should work for free if you can afford it. I have copy cubs that work for me. I have 6 really wonderful copy cubs. And I told them, I'm not going to pay you much. And I only want people who are willing to eschew profit today so they can master a skill. And I said, I'm going to work your ass off because I'm recreating the same conditions that were in place when I became as successful as I was. Now, these people aren't just trying to make a living. They're trying to be world class in their field. But they get to hang around me, and they get to see every decision that I make, everything that I do, how I manage this stuff, and they're learning in the field, not in the laboratory, right? It's preferable to pay for access as opposed to pay for it in time, you pay for it in money. Because, by the way, then if you pay for the right access, they have a vested interest in your success. Like they will, if they're a good person, they will be incentivized to see you succeed because you paid them money and now they're going to help you become successful. And so this is what you want to get access towards. This is what you want to be surrounded by. You can consume material on YouTube. There is nothing against that. You can listen to podcasts. You can scroll the gram for information. The problem with that is it's a good first step, but it's not sufficient in and of itself. It points you in the right direction. It really helps you understand the differences between what you're doing now and what you could be doing. It gives you clues on who to follow further. It gives you some models to play with. But it is if you want to be pro, not hobbyist at this game, but if you want to be pro, and you're a VIP, so I'm already very confident that you're at a pro level because you had to pay money to be here today, right? So if you want to be pro level, then you have to you should invest in the areas with time and money in order to be more excellent in those areas. And it doesn't have to be a lot of money. It just has to be very intelligent with how you distribute that money because you have a finite amount of it. So you want to be able to get a return on that investment. But the other thing we tell our kids too is we hope your first boss is a hard ass. This is what we tell the kids. We said, we hope the first person that you work with is mean and uncouth and challenges you and is unfair to you and will do things that are unjust. I mean, obviously not harm you. And we've trained the kids, if somebody's doing something to them that is abusive, to obviously communicate that to us. But we want them to be in an environment that is incredibly difficult and challenging when they're young. Because if they learn to handle it then with their parents' support so they can come back to mommy and daddy crying and licking their wounds and we can help contextualize that, then as they get older, everything will become easier to them, right? Like, here's a very difficult thing that you're going to have to manage in your life, and you've already encountered it. You will do the right thing and not get a reward for it. You will do the just thing and you will still suffer injustice. You will do the right thing, but it will be unrighteous what will occur to you. And some people will die never having reconciled that calculus. They will say, yeah, it shouldn't be that way. And it is. Here's a little exercise for you I would love for you to learn. Start doing an audit on the word should, in the word would, in the word could. I have never found those to ever be useful in any circumstance, and I don't like to speak in generalities. I have never found the word should to be useful. So every time I catch myself saying the word should, that's a clue for me that I'm operating outside of who I am. I'm saying, well, like I should have been able to make that sell over there on that product. You should have. Yeah, I agree. But it's not a very useful way of looking at the issue. So should and could and would, these are all clues that you are suffering from the disease of righteousness. And some people are so self-righteous that they never accomplish anything, right? We have to be able to get out of our own way. More often than not, success is getting out of your own way. And so this is, again, why coaching gives you the feedback to help you become more aware of this. Ideally, in a loving, caring, positive, enforcing environment, that's ideal. And that's what we tend to create. A safe environment where you feel like no matter what you do, you can be successful is the number one way that you'll grow. If you knew you couldn't be harmed, you would do anything and everything that you wanted to do. If you knew that only success would occur if you created digital products, you would already be creating them by now. So what we try to do, especially for the ones that we love the most, is we try to create an environment where experimentation is never unsafe. So they can feel comfortable taking chances because they're supported with people around them. That's what we try to design. Unfortunately, that doesn't really occur in the world. That's an oasis. You are fortunate and or you are lucky if you have such a thing now. And if you do, count your blessings because it is rare in this existence, right? So this is the environment you want to cultivate over time for yourself and want to be a part of. But when you're starting off, you have to learn to operate in environments that are under less than ideal conditions. And I watch the social media stuff. I'm old, but I'm not that old. Like I see, the Zoomer zeitgeist, if you will. I see what's going out there. In the United States and most other countries similar to the United States, the delicacy in which people crumble under the least amount of slight is at an all-time high. And that is not good. Okay? So I'm not saying you should have to put up with abuse. I'm not saying you should have to be in situations that are dangerous to your health, right? But there's a difference between an abusive situation and some intensity. There's a difference between somebody who tells you to do something and then when you do it, they yell at you for doing it and you're like, what the fuck? I just did what you told me. And they're like, I don't want to hear an argument right now. And you know what you do when you're starting off? You shut your mouth. And you accept the fact that sometimes you're going to do things that you're supposed to do and they're not going to go your way. And you learn to manage that. You learn to not allow that friction to harm you from a productivity standpoint. And you know what you really do? Like if you were me, you learn to use that as motivation. You're like, I will tolerate this for as little time as I need to, so I will create something in its place so I no longer have to depend on it. And then I can design it the way that I want to do. But generally, in order to get there, you're going to have to tolerate a lot of things not making sense. You're going to have to tolerate a lot of contradictions. You're going to have to tolerate a lot of friction points. And it's how you manage those, that and the right plan is really the secret to success. How you manage those difficulties plus having a really good plan is the key. And most people try to work the plan. And so you will model somebody that you see successful in the plan and they will be successful and you won't because it's not only the plan, it's the plan plus some of these things that we're talking about. Now, tools and resources and coaching, all of those things help support having that right approach mentally and emotionally and attitudinally, right? But these are where these two things merge. Yep. Okay, cool. And I'm just breaking them down. This is what's going on in my mind. How do you prioritize God practically? Ideally, you should give him the first part of your day. When you wake up, that should be the first thing you do. If anything's really important to you, it should be the first thing you do. Maybe after going to the bathroom in the morning. And sometimes it might not be the top priority for you for now. But anything important should have some sort of visibility in your life on a continual basis, even if it's only for a minute, just so it's there. Yeah. Okay. How do I get rid of doubt? Because I don't have access to the best AIs. So let's frame it again, right? So this is going to be hard for you until I model it enough times, but hopefully it will stick. Because I don't have access to the best AIs, how can I manage my doubt and still get what I want? So that we take a problem frame and we turn it into a solution frame. You feel me, right? And by the way, I'll give you a little bit of extra that I've found working with the clients that I work with is the last resort I try to do is to directly fight against something that is difficult in my life. So if you're like, I got all this doubt, I have all this doubt is hitting me, and I'm pushing on this doubt and it's pushing back and I'm fighting this doubt and I'm fighting and I'm fighting and I'm fighting it. I generally find that's the least effective way to manage a difficult situation, like an emotion. Instead, you say, how do I live with this doubt and still move forward enough? Because now we don't have to get rid of the doubt. We just have to manage it. How can I have just a slight decrease in this doubt so I can take a few steps forward and get a different thing than I'm getting right now? So getting rid of a thing completely is very hard to do. But modulating it downward just a little bit, way more possible. You feel me? So everybody else is like, I got to be confident in order to succeed. I'm like, how can you fail and still move forward? See the difference between those two attitudes, right? If somebody's saying like, I'm having trouble focusing, great. What's the least amount of focus that we need just to do the least amount of successful things possible in our life? I'm not trying to turn like something that is very difficult to you into something that's automatic. That's like, no wonder you're struggling, right? I would struggle too if that was my DNA. Instead, it's like, how do we modulate these things down or up enough just to get past the threshold from not doing to doing? You feel me on that one? All we got to do is cross that threshold. We can do it poorly at first. Anything worth doing is worth doing poorly at first. And then we can get our reps in, right? We can do it the worst first iteration of the thing and then iterate on it afterwards, right? But we just have to modulate these friction points that prevent us from moving forward enough so we cross the threshold from not doing into doing. That's what we need to optimize for. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, and use alchemy itself too. Thank you for that, okay? Use tools to help you manage this because unfortunately I will not always be there for you. So Geronimo says, if there's something that is my priority, but its time is not enough because situations as a full-time job won't let me focus my attention to it. Yeah. So then you do your best you can. So you could say, if I am restricted from time and I can't physically do this thing, then I will do it mentally. So here's a little science for you. Because I practice the principle of a slight edge. I consume way more digital products than anybody here. Because I'm always looking for that one little thing that can be impactful in my life. Because if it works, I can carry it with me for the rest of my life. Isn't that a good deal? I can buy it once and then get a return on it for the rest of my life. That's incredible. That's like a stock that always pays dividends. It's like real estate that only appreciates over a period of time. And so that's what I do. Now, here's the thing. If you visualize the success and the outcome, even if you don't do it, if you merely visualize it, that will create nearly the same neurology, like wiring in your body. The physiology will be very similar. So if you see yourself succeed for many, many, many months in my head before I would speak in front of an audience, I would visualize myself speaking in front of an audience before I ever had one. And I would see the faces in the crowd, and I would notice the distinguishing characteristics of each individual face in the front row. You look like this, you look like this, you look like this. I would notice the feeling of the texture of the podium that I stood in front of. I would even hear the air conditioning humming in the background, and I would hear the crowd murmuring as they settled down and they would shift, and I would feel the weight of the word off of my lips every time that I spoke it. And I would see it, and I would repeat this process in my mind. And I could do that when I was standing in line at the bank before, mobile banking was a thing. And I could do that in the shower. I could do that when I was doing other things during those little moments of downtime. And I work with Bob Proctor personally, and Bob Proctor would say this saying, goes, if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. And I'm a firm believer in that. And so if at first you can't prioritize it physically, you can prioritize it mentally, okay? My wife just literally texted me right now. It's like, I can't find the link to see you speaking. Everything shows reply. She's not a VIP. She thinks it's on the main session. Let me hook her up for a second. Appreciate your patience in 1 this. 1 second. 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 1 sec All right, I'm going to send it to her. Yeah. And, on the personal front, find you somebody who can support you and that you can support like this, right? I think I copied it from there and I can paste it into here. If you have somebody that always has your back like this, then you've already won. Yeah. And you might not always get it right your first time. Speaking from experience, right? Hey, hubby. Yeah. By the way, I don't know if you've noticed this, but some days she will comment. It was funny because one of the days they clipped the comment from her. They thought it was a customer. I'm like, oh, that's my wife. She was commenting in the chat a lot. What mindset shift or decision made the biggest difference in your success? So this is really interesting. So let me parse this question back. Okay. Oftentimes you will hear this because it makes for good clips. What was the one thing that made all the difference in your life? What was that single decision that you made? Or what was this or what was that? I don't know if there is a single decision. Success is often in doing a lot of little things correctly on a consistent basis. Yeah. So I think it was a little bit of this combined with a little bit of that combined with a little bit of that, right? Yeah, she says, sorry, I wasn't a VIP. So I think a lot of success is decisions made consistently over a period of time. And so usually, in reality, it's not one decision that made all the difference. That's a good narrative. And our brain will have trouble processing all the data, so we will recall it back later. Okay, they call this hindsight bias. Let me spit a little game on you. I'm going to look it up. Hindsight bias, okay? Let's get a definition for this. So this is one of the many models that I've studied in my life. So I've studied bias, how we have biases in our brain, and how we make fallacies in our decision-making process. Because I'm like, I want to eliminate the biases that restrict me, and I want to commit less fallacies in my life so I can make decisions more accurately. So a hindsight bias, also known as knew it all along phenomenon, or creeping determinism, is the common tendency for people to perceive past events as having been more predictable than they were. So in this particular case, the hindsight bias was, I know exactly what made me successful. But the reality is, I really don't. Like my accuracy on the exact specific things, I can point to some of them and they can be useful to you, but it is a culmination of a lot of little things done right, repeated over a constant period of time. Like this is the magic secret of success. And you can see why this doesn't go viral on social media because there's too much nuance to that, and there's too much difficulty around somebody understanding that. Although if you sit with it just a minute or two, I'm not saying you have to try it on and wear it all summer, but if you sit with it a minute or two, I think it will be very easy to understand. And you have to start with the small, easy decisions that you can make and commit to, and you can compound those over time. Yeah. And I think that I think that's what makes the biggest difference, right? I think that's what makes the biggest difference. Yeah, and I got Barth here too. I got Barth, my friend from 7th grade. He's in the chat here today. He's VIP, right? I got family. We got family here. Yeah. So monetize pro benefits, like Iman is very sensitive, as am I. I'm less sensitive because I love to sell. You know me, I love to pitch and I love to close. I get massive enjoyment out of a skill that many of you are scared to death to even consider, right? I don't know much about Monetize Pro. This is one of the things that we're iterating for next time. I said, next time I need to understand and know more about Monetize Pro. So when the question asks, I could properly answer it. To my understanding, it's a little bit more coaching, but we're trying to keep this session more around general reflection and everything. What quality should we look for in a mentor? That's a good question. Here's a good exercise for you. I want you to, don't do it right now, but write down the notes to do it later, okay? Think of 5 people in your life that you admire. And then of the 5 people that you admire, I want you to list 5 traits about each person that you admire. So when you're done, you will have at most 25 traits. You will probably have less than that because you will see a pattern and they will overlap. So if they overlap and all 5 of them have the same trait, then there's a clue. Whoever your mentor is, they should have at least that trait. And then ideally, when you get all 25 traits, you pick the 3 to 5 traits that said, if my mentor has these, that's a good sign. Now you have to make another list. What are things that I will not tolerate? What are things that I would never approve of or accept? What are negative traits that would completely derail the whole thing? And then you make a list of those. So my mentor needs to have these 3 to 5 traits, and ideally the mentor doesn't have these 3 to 5 issues. That's the ideal, okay? If you get that, fantastic. At least you have clarity, so as you move through life, when mentors show up that meet those traits, you'll better recognize them. But until then, you have to accept less than ideal circumstances. You have to be able to accept mentoring selectively, right? You have to say, from this person, I want to take this from them, but I don't want to take these other things from them. So let me import just this factor to them, and let me parse the advice they give in this area versus advice they give in other areas where I don't want to model them, and I will import what's useful about them in the area they are an expert in, but I will kindly ignore the other pieces that don't fit into my paradigm, right? So like, for example, if I want to be an excellent father, I will learn business advice from people whose business is their whole jam, where they're like, no kids, nothing else. It's on the grind, Sigma grind set 24/7, 365. And I'll say, I can learn from them specifically different useful business strategies, but then I will calibrate them to my situation. How do I design that within the parameters of the life that I want to live? Because if I exactly model them, I can only model them to the extent that I'm willing to live a life similar to theirs. You feel me on that one? So we have to integrate parts, and then we can be useful. It is unfortunate, my personal opinion on this one, take it or leave it. I think it's unfortunate right now that we have become so siloed and so judgmental into people who are so different than us. So even your enemies can teach you insightful things. Sometimes your enemies will teach you better lessons than your friends ever will, right? So sometimes if you learn what not to do, that is more useful than what to do. But in the United States, people have deleted 50% of the potential population of people that they can learn from based on an ideological consideration. I find that fucking insane, right? For me to assume that half of a population who may not agree with a certain ideology has no usefulness whatsoever and delete that only hurts me. That doesn't hurt anybody else. I mean, it hurts me more than it hurts anybody else. So even in the people that we don't necessarily see eye to eye with, we can find utility from. And we can get a lot of good value out of places that otherwise nobody else would touch. Now, who do you think you become in that process if you walk around and you carry yourself like that in life? Isn't that like really good for your own being? It's not to see everything and not to see all these problems in the world and see enemies around every single corner. Now, guess what is perpetrated out there? That feeling, because that creates addiction. And when you are addicted, you are on platforms. And when you are on platforms, people are making money, right? This is all by design, right? And so you have to be able to recognize where this comes from. If you are angry, you are twice as dedicated to stay on a platform than if you're not. So let's use anger. I will use anger as a useful situation. If I can gain utility out of anger and that can help me and I can temporarily use it, I will. I just don't want it to eat me alive in the process. So anger is one of those emotions where you have to handle like a snake, right? Like you can handle it, but you can get bit if you're not careful with it. But if you walk around from life saying, what's useful about this that I can take, and what's the rest of this that I can disregard, and I don't have to carry with me, I think that will show up positively in so many different avenues of your life, right? And I'm not perfect at this. I am a work in progress, as are you. These are things that I work towards on a consistent basis, and some days I show up better than other days. But just the fact that I am optimizing for this allows me to get more than what most people get in terms of like moving forward and getting the things that I want in my life, right? So I hope that makes sense. What's your all-time favorite quote? Probably like a non-Bhagavad Gita quote. I won't drop like religion on you too much. I already kind of did. But my favorite quote is by Churchill, where it says, "The truth is incontrovertible. The truth is incontrovertible. Malice may attack it, ignorance may deride it, but in the end, there it is." And I've probably dropped it a time or two in this chat, right? Here's another one for you. Of all the words of mice and men, the saddest are what might have been. I think I got that mostly right. Of all the words of mice and men, the saddest are what might have been. And that is a quote on leaving your potential outside of you. Yeah. But I like the Churchill quote. The truth is incontrovertible. Malice may attack it. Ignorance may deride it. But in the end, there it is. And what your goal is to find that truth. Find that truth. This is why I sell. I mean, let's look at it on how I sell, right? I find the best value in the product, that is its North Star, that it is its eternal truth, and I sell to that. And that's what makes me incredibly effective at what I do in the mode that you see me in typically, which is selling. And then I find a way to do it and combine it with coaching and education and training at the same time, which until me, people said you couldn't do. So they're like, that's not possible. It's either this or that. And I'm a living, breathing, talking, walking example of what I'm describing to you. I said, yeah, it's impossible unless, ... right? To quote my friend, Dr. Allen Bernard, he taught me that. So it's like, okay, let's bring in the best parts of these and integrate them in a holistic way, and let's see what happens. But I had to experiment. It's the whole deal of you will overestimate what you can do in 90 days and you will underestimate what you can do in 90 weeks, right? Or you will overestimate what you can do in a month and you will underestimate what you can do in a year. Like you can go farther than you imagine, but just not in the shortest period of time that you would like it to be in. But this is why we compound our successes. This is why we keep working at it. This is why we invest each day into the next day, and we create momentum and we create leverage. And this is why it seems like it takes forever and then it happens all at once. Tell me if that resonates with you. How do you actually find a mentor? I find that incredibly hard. So I could get philosophical with you. I said, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And maybe that happens to you. That could be a way, right? But you have mentorship indirectly from me right now. But I will tell you, and this is independent, if there was no add to cart associated to this, and there was no incentive for me whatsoever, I will tell you again, either buying your way into mentorship, whatever you can afford, or trading your time for mentorship if you can't afford it. That is your answer. You want to put yourself into situations where you will do work for other people, even for free. And by the way, if I say that in the world, people will hate me for that in public. Out of context, they will hate me. They will accuse me of being a slave driver, and they will accuse me of all sorts of nefarious things, right? Like we have this nanny that works for us right now. It's just an incredible woman in our household. And my wife went and posted in one of these Facebook groups looking for new help when we moved back from France to the United States. And man, they vilified her. They're like, you should pay this wage, and you should do that, and you should do this, and you want all of this stuff, and you're asking too much. And it was ridiculous. But if you think I'm mentally tough, my wife is even tougher than I am. Like she can handle the criticism better than I can because her heart is pure, and she knew what she was going to do, and she knew what was going to happen as a result of that. And we have this wonderful person in our life that is so valuable to our kids and us, and we have helped up so tremendously. But if we would have censored ourselves and we would have said, well, no, we have to do it in this way that the masses, the average masses, will tell us to do it, and that would be the only way we could get a result, we would have denied everybody from benefiting from this right now. But it goes back to putting yourself in a situation where it's going to be difficult for you at first to put yourself in a high-stress environment where people aren't going to, in general, be accepting of it. But you don't want to take a risk, right? So we have to do it in a way that doesn't really harm you. We can sharpen you up and toughen you up without harming you. We can mold you into the best version of you that's possible in the process without crushing you. But we do have to apply a little bit of pressure. So if you can't pay for your mentor, then you should put yourself in a situation where you work for your mentor, under very unideal circumstances. Like every single person that I work with on Iman's team that I've known personally essentially forced themselves into that situation. They asserted themselves into the situation to take the role on that they wanted to take. And then if they were good, then they can move up in the organization. And they did. Yeah. And now we do Russian banyas and we get our ass kicked together. It's a really fun experience. I made it through the one last night. So here's a little funny story for you. So the first time, so you got to understand, when we did Monetize 2.0 launch, I thought I would be flying from Nice in France to Dubai, which is a casual 7 hours. That's light work, right? But what happened is last minute, I had to fly from Nice to Iowa, and you don't get that directly. There was like 2 connections involved. I think I went Copenhagen to Chicago to like Cedar Rapids or something stupid like that. And then I sat there for a couple of days to see my dad, and then I had to fly out to Las Vegas because I had to do a 2-day training for these multi-million-dollar businesses that are part of a group that I lead. And then from that, I had to pop back to LA at the home and take care of something real quick because I was like, I have nowhere else to go. Like I either stay in Vegas, I might as well get back to LA and go to our property in LA there. And then from there, I had to fly to Dubai. I land in Dubai. The next day, I'm meeting up with the guys, and we're going and doing banya. And I did not make it through. I lasted the least. I copped out really quickly. And in the back of my head, I was like, damn, I just blown this whole deal right here, right? These guys are going to think I'm soft. This is like the mental thing I'm talking to myself. I'm like, I screwed this whole thing up. But of course, these guys are really cool. They don't play like that. And, I'm a little older than those guys are. So this time in Banya, we did it yesterday. Nailed that shit, right? So there's always a second chance. But you want to put yourself into situations where you have the ability to grow. And I'm always doing that. We're always working towards that. And this is the flavor of life, isn't it? Can someone make a list of all the bonuses? There's a lot. And again, I'm not trying to pitch today. With every fiber of my being, I'm not trying to pitch today. When you were young, what did you spend your time on? I screwed around a lot when I was younger. Define young, by the way. So I played a lot of video games. And so that was a coping mechanism in the environment that I grew up in. But I read a lot of books. I've always had this desire to read, and I love to read. And I tried to produce a lot of music. So I would find these different programs, and I learned how to work them online. And I wrote a lot of lyrics, and I wrote a lot. I was a writer. I've always been a writer. But, I screwed around a lot, too. Partied a lot when I was younger. Did a lot of illicit substances when I was younger. I got that out of my system early, thank God, right? In a sense, very dangerous though, very, very dangerous. And nobody cared to check in on me. And I wrestled. I wrestled up until I couldn't wrestle anymore because I was too busy screwing around. And then I always tried to do music. And that music was the only really constant in my life that I stuck to. And then that's how I led into the music, then led me into, the religion being a monk. And then that led me to really focus and get clarity. And then that led me into studying business to try to make my music work. And then that allowed me to drop the music and stay on the business. And then from the business, I'll tell you another little funny story here. You want to know about the first money I ever made online? It's crazy, right? So my mom and dad got divorced when I was 14, and that one event was pretty chaotic. My dad bounced, and he just didn't want anything to do with it anymore. And my mom, she went and got into some really heavy stuff. And so I kind of wanted to stay with her to watch her and take care of her so she didn't, hurt herself too bad. And so I was kind of trying to take care of her, go to school, manage the house, and all that kind of stuff at an early age. So then I got through that. That was like the most difficult part of my life. I went to school, and then, my mom, she ended up going to prison. So I dropped out of school because I just didn't want to be there. And I only went there to get away from everything. And I came back, and it was Easter weekend, and I kind of moved back in with my dad and didn't tell him because I had no other option. So after not seeing him for a while, I just showed up. And then he was like, hey, we were going up to my grandma's. And he goes, when are you planning on going back to school? And I'm like, I'm not. And he goes, I didn't think so. And that was the end of the conversation. We never talked about it further. But my dad was struggling in his life, and I was struggling in my life. And so we needed each other at that time. So that's how we started kind of rebuilding our relationship, which was great. And so I was living with him, and then I started working on the music while I was living with him in this little tiny, little shitty apartment. And we only had one closet. And in that closet, there was this advanced dating series book. It was like an info product, a digital product that he bought for like $200. So this was really funny because my dad was single. He was trying to learn how to date again. So my dad went to the internet, bought a digital product on how to pick up chicks, right? And I just started getting into business. So I heard about this program. So I'm like, I know this program. It's a thing that you can buy on the internet. And if somebody purchases it from you, you get a 200% affiliate commission. So I'm like, I have the materials. I will learn these materials so I can market them on the internet and promote this digital product and make money with it. So I started writing articles. And so I wrote these articles about like these techniques to pick up women that I learned from my dad's book that he had. And then I would promote the affiliate program. And in the first month I did that, I made like $300. And I was painting houses at this time. This is how I was getting by. So I'd paint houses during the day, and then I would write these articles during the night. And then I did the math on it. And I'm like, I am making more money painting houses than I am writing these articles. And the affiliate commissions didn't come for like 60 days. So I'm like, this won't get me free. This won't allow me to quit painting and branch out on my own. That's when I started writing articles. So I was painting at the time with like one of my first mentors, and we had painted for 22 days straight. It was fucking miserable. But we usually painted inside. Interiors, but this time we were painting a house with the exterior of the house, and it was raining that day. So thank God I got to go home. And that day I said, I'm going to now write articles for other people, because I got good at writing articles, even though I couldn't monetize them. So I would write articles for other people, and that started my ghostwriting career. And then within 7 days, thank you so much. Within 7 days of that, then I started making money as an article writer. And then I was able to quit painting and able to dig into that. And then after doing that for a long time and getting tired and exhausted with that because it didn't scale, that's when I created my first digital product on how to write articles. So that's a very circuitous way of how I was able to figure all this out. How about that one? How do you get that smart and reflected? Part of it, like I said, a digital product was responsible for that, because my mom taught me how to read before I could walk, talk, or write. I couldn't even walk and I couldn't even talk, but I could read. So I think I had that neuroplasticity wiring going on. Those neural pathways, they started really creating connections. So I was very blessed. But intelligence can be a curse in this business, and it often is, because you will overthink things and you will underfeel things. And intelligence can get in your way because there's more ways something can go wrong than they can go right. And if you do the calculus on that, you're like, well, all of these are wrong. Only a few of these could be right. So therefore, there are more wrong ways than right ways, so I shouldn't do it. When the reality is that's a quantitative calculation. It's not a qualitative calculation. So the qualitative says it doesn't matter. This one way, if it goes right, will